Hello everyone, I'm Michaela Kathleen, and in this video I'm going to be doing my October reading wrap-up. I read 3 books in October. I read the King of Scars duology and The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian, which I actually read this one between these two because I was traveling and I didn't want to lug around this ginormous book. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about these two first and then this one, just for continuity's sake. So jumping right into King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. I've been slowly making my way through the Grishaverse. 2 years ago I read the Six of Crows duology, and then last year I read the original Grishaverse trilogy, and now I have read the King of Scars duology. And it started out with a bang, as all Leigh Bardugo books do, I feel. I feel like that's kind of one of her trademark things, is to have a dramatic first chapter and also to have it be from a character's point of view that is not used for the rest of the book, which sometimes is disappointing. Like in the Six of Crows duology, the first book, the first character perspective is Joost, and I really liked him and we never saw him again. But it was definitely nice to be back in a familiar fantasy world. I've been kind of having a bit of a reading slump the month before this, and so just reading fantasy and being in a world that's kind of familiar was just a relief. Leigh Bardugo is really good at character work, and I loved all of the characters we were following in these 2 books. The ending was really dramatic, really emotional, just a really excellent ending that made me excited for the second book. And yeah, there were some really good twists along the way. There was also a very obvious twist, but overall really enjoyed this one, was really happy to be back in the Grishaverse. And then at the end of the month I picked up Rule of Wolves. This one I did not enjoy as much as the first one, I think partly just because it was so long and there were so many character perspectives. I feel like I didn't love the whole Shu Han storyline just because it wasn't as exciting as the other storylines, and it was with not as big of characters within the universe. But it did pick up right where the last one left off, while still having that very dramatic opening with like a one-time character perspective. My favorite storyline by far was Nina's storyline. Slight spoilers for like the Grishaverse in general, but I like Nina and Han as a couple way more than Nina and Matthias. I think that might be a controversial opinion. Nina manipulating the queen was really good. I loved all of her spy work in this book. That twist at the end, spoiler alert, the twist with Han, like I saw it coming maybe like 2 or 3 pages before it actually happened, like the chapter before it gets revealed, but I still loved it because when I realized it was coming, I was so excited. So once again, this one had like a really great ending. I loved the ending, most especially Nina's storyline. Her storyline was my favorite throughout, and the end was also my favorite. I, of course, enjoyed Nikolai's storyline. Zoya, I used to not really care about as a character, but in this duology, I grew to like her a lot more, so that was nice. It was exciting to see the crows, but again, this book was pretty jam-packed, so at the same time, it was a lot. Where Zoya's story went was also a lot, and because there was so much going on, some of the kind of smaller things were made to feel even smaller. Like, another spoiler alert here, David's death, I didn't care much about because he's a pretty small character relative to the others. So a lot of characters were very, very sad about it, and I was not, just because there were so many bigger things going on. And then also there were just some parts where characters I felt like were making silly choices. Like, I don't understand why any character would even for 1 second trust anything the Darkling says. And again, that was another storyline that felt both like too much and not enough, strangely, because like, I don't know, I felt like the Darkling being around should have been more dramatic, but that was kind of like just a little side story going on within the story, and it was one of many side stories too many. So yeah, this one was a little bit chunky, a little bit messy, but still a lot of fun. So then also this month I read The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie, which this one starts out right away with a very distinct voice from the narrator that I enjoyed. It was really entertaining, really interesting. It had like an interesting mix of like middle grade vibes, but with very serious topics being discussed, which I thought it handled pretty well. And it offers a perspective that we don't get a lot in books, probably more nowadays than we did at the time that it was published. I didn't know until after reading the book, reading the Goodreads reviews about the drama with the author. He has openly admitted to mistreating women, but like I don't feel like that's a message that you get out of the book itself, and I feel like the book does have a lot of good messages in it. And at this point the book is so old and already so successful that I don't feel like reading it now is benefiting the author enough to like not let yourself benefit from the quality novel that it is. So yeah, complicated issue that could be talked about way more than I am gonna talk about it. Overall, I'm sure nowadays you could get this perspective from a lot of books, but I did enjoy this one. So that was it for all of the books that I read in October. I was very happy to have a much better reading month this month than last month. Let me know down below how your October reading has been going. Have you been reading any spooky books for October? I hope you enjoyed watching. Now on to the quote for today's video, which today I have one from Boy Meets World, and it's a little conversation between Mr. Feeney and Topanga. And Mr. Feeney says, "Do good." And Topanga says, "Don't you mean do well?" And Mr. Feeney replies, "No, I mean do good." Thanks for watching. Remember, words matter.